Good day, dear students, teachers, learners of English. Today, I'm going to introduce you with different kinds of speaking activities in our online video lesson. Let's go. This video lesson was prepared at Pedagogical Institute of Bukhara State University. So the aim of our lesson is to introduce with speaking activities. First of all, we should identify what is speaking skill. Speaking skills are defined as the skills which allow us to communicate effectively. They give us the ability to convey information verbally and in a way that the listener can understand. So how can you learn speaking? Speaking can be learned during the primary schools, secondary schools, and at the institute. And here today, I'm going to introduce you some activities which can be helpful for you to learn, to improve your speaking skills. So first activity is called Describe It. Here, teachers can use some piece of cards where the words are written. It would be better if you use nouns or words because so prepositions or adjectives, they can be described easily. That's why try to use nouns and verbs. So you can write anything there, and you can ask your students to describe it, and students should describe this word by their color, shape, maybe. This is also effective for improving speaking skills. So next activity is tongue twisters. So you can use tongue twisters because they are very useful for learners of English to improve their speaking. What's tongue twisters? So tongue twisters are a fun way to practice new vocabulary, first of all. And if you don't know what tongue twisters are, tongue twister is a sentence or several sentences that's very difficult to say. They usually due to a sequence of similar sounds. And you can experience it with children and with adults as well. So, for example, seashells at the seashore. And students have to read, and in a minute they can repeat it, which is very helpful to improve speaking skills, to pronunciation also. And where can you find tongue twisters? So if you Google it, you can find so for different level students, for children, for kids, for adults, so different types of tongue twisters. Next activity is called I went to the supermarket. Here, children or adults just can practice this activity. This game is great to flex those memory muscles. And how? So first you should create a circle of students. So the first student can start by saying, I went to the supermarket and bought some bread. Here you can use anything they choose. And then second student should continue it like, I went to the supermarket and I bought some bread and apple. And the next students should add more and more things. Here you can just continue around the circle with the students adding more and more items until somebody isn't able to remember all of the list. You can choose to either reset the game once the list can be remembered, or for a more competitive element, you can choose to reset the list minus the students who couldn't remember. And here you can identify the definite winner. And so this activity is just to do with memory and doesn't necessarily involve complex vocabulary. And that's why this activity is suitable for students of all ages and levels. So next activity is called I Spy. And here you can use just beginner levels to pre-intermediate level students. And here, the first student should pick an object in the room without saying what it is. For example, they may just see a clock. Then they have to say the phrase, I spy with my little eye something beginning with, and they can say the first letter of the word like C. So if it's clock. Then the other students have to guess what it is, and whoever is correct becomes the next person to play. So keep going until everyone has had a turn to play. This game can be fairly simple if there are common words such as pen, book, and something like that. Next activity is called word association. So this activity is great to stimulate some creativity. It's also a very simple idea. Student 1 says a word. It can be anything, but for this example, we will say green. And so second student should say the word related to the word of the first student. For example, grass. So green, grass. And next students should say the word related to the grass. For example, sheep or cow. And then thus you can continue around the chain with each student adding a related word to what the previous person has said. The rules are simple. You have to be able to explain why a word is related, and you also can't repeat the words that has already been said. To make this one harder, you can also include a timer. Next activity is called A to Z categories. So first you can ask your students if they know English alphabet, and you can revise English alphabet. And so in this game, the teacher picks a category such as fruit, countries, language, for example, literature, vegetables, and etc. So the idea is given for the students to think of something for each letter of the alphabet. For example, if they picked the category countries, then it would go like this. For example, first student says America, second student Belgium. So then A, B, C, if it's C, China, D, if it's D, Denmark, and so you can continue like that. Next activity is called match. So your student level, you can play this game with the beginner level students to pre-intermediate level students. So for this game, you need 2 sets of cards. The first set of cards will have pictures of various things like ball, house, etc. And for pre-intermediate level students, for example, pollution, different transportation, and so on. The second set will have the vocabulary on, and as you probably have guessed by now, the student's aim is to match the pictures up with the vocabulary. And here you can use definitions and the word itself. So they have to match the definition with the word. And and thus you can continue this activity, and it's very helpful to, first of all, memorize the word, and secondly, to give different synonyms, definitions, which can improve their speaking skills. So next activity is called word grab race. So to set this game up, you again need a collection of cards with the vocabulary on. So as we know, speaking is connected with vocabulary. If they know more vocabulary, and during the speaking activity, if you give more vocabulary to use and they use it, so their speaking skills will be improved. So collection of cards, then with vocabulary written on it, and so you should mix all the cards up. And next, you should divide your students into 2 teams. A student from each group will have their turn first. Then when the teacher says a word, the chosen student from each team has to run to the front and find the correct card with the word on from the pile. Once they have brought it back to the group, both teams will then switch the active player. This is repeated until all of the cards have been captured, and the team with the most at the end wins. So you make this activity harder. Instead of teacher saying the word, you could show a picture on a screen or hold up an object. This forces the students to use the vocabulary and understand what it means. And next interesting activity is called hangman. So all level students can participate here. So you can easify, or you can do it more difficult according to the level of your students. And so hangman takes a little bit of explaining, but once your students understand it, and then they will love it. So the basic point of hangman is for the students to guess a word. So a word picked by the teacher, or you can ask some students, ask some questions. And they take turns guessing a letter each, or by answering some questions, or so by, for example, giving different kinds of facts. And it's up to the creativity of teachers when and what to use. For example, you can use it during literature lessons, you can use it in vocabulary lessons and speaking lessons, and so on. So, there are 8 parts to the drawing. For example, first draw the post, then draw the head, like it's like a circle, then underneath the horizontal part of the post. Then draw the body, it's a vertical line under the head, then draw first arm, then draw another just arm, and it's like a stick from the other side of the body. And then draw leg, and so a stick from the bottom of the body, and so second just leg, a stick from the other side at the bottom of the body. And the last, draw the nose, a line joining the head to the post. So if they cannot just answer the question, so at last they will be losers, and the students need to guess what is this word, or they can be able to answer the questions teacher gives. And so before the picture of the hangman is complete, if they guess it correctly before the hangman is complete, then they win. If not, they lose. So if you want to include the students further, then whoever wins the round can have a turn at drawing the hangman in the next round. This game is very interesting, and this game is fun regardless of age, group size, or ability. So its difficulty can be altered by using harder or easier vocabulary, or as I said before, you can use different classes, for example, for literature classes, for vocabulary classes, and so on. So next activity is called stand up and sit down. This activity is very helpful and interesting for kinesthetic students because most students are kinesthetic and they don't like to sit. They like to move around the class. That's why, for this game, you will need either a board or projector or some realia. First of all, make a line of chairs with the students sit down, so facing the teacher. And you will then show either an image or hold up an object. Next, you say either the correct vocabulary or a different word. If what you say and what is shown is correct, then the children stand up. If not, they just stay sit down. To add a competitive angle to this, you can have the ones who get it wrong lose the game and leave the round. Repeat this until there is a winner. Alternatively, if everyone is very good, then you could do the last student to stand up or sit down, etc. This game is ideal for children. They love getting involved and moving around. This is a great way to win preschoolers back if you find you have lost their attention partway through a class. And our next activity is called spelling throw. So the idea of this game is to get the students to spell a word out one letter at a time. Each student takes it in turn, saying each letter, through which what makes it difficult. To begin, you first need to arrange the students in a circle, either seated or standing. It doesn't matter. You will also need a ball. For this example, let's say the chosen word is tiger. So first student T throws the ball to student 5, for example, and the student 5, I, throws the ball to student 3. Student 3 just G to E, and thus this continues until the word is complete. Again, like with the other games, you could do an knockout rule where if the students get the wrong letter, then they are out of that round, or you can repeat it. There is a clear winner. So if this game is slightly too easy for the students, then you can introduce timer system where they will only get a few seconds to answer. If they don't answer in time, then they are also out. This game is best suited to children. They will enjoy using a ball to interact with, and it's also more suited to beginner levels. Especially when they are learning how to spell. And I just I wouldn't experience it with advanced students, or you can use with advanced students also. So word search. word search. This is also very interesting activity. You can just use it for beginner level students or advanced level students, and with children and adults. So this take a little longer to prepare, but when it comes to actually playing, they are as easy as they come. If anyone that doesn't know what a word search is, you basically have a grid of squares, and so inside each square is a letter. At first glance, it will appear as if you are staring at a giant mass of random letters. However, there are words hidden inside this mass that must be found. Nowadays, there are a lot of online this kind of word search games, and I can advise you to use British Council word search game. It's very interesting, where so in a square randomly they just give online, they give words, and students should find more words. So from this, using these letters, not just as letters, and they will, according to the level and according to the number of letters in the word, they can give just points to students. For example, 1 point, 2 or 3 points will be given to students, and it's very interesting. So first, they use some technology in the lesson, and so secondly, it's very interesting for teamwork also. If you divide your students, your group into two, and so if it's some kind of competitive game, and if it's online, for this you should have internet access. It's very interesting. So don't forget the site britishcouncil.com, where you can find word search game. So synonyms. Synonyms are very how to say useful, just useful to improve speaking, to improve the range of vocabulary. So with synonyms, the point is to give a student word, and they have to give you a synonym for that word in turn. For example, if the teacher says scalding, so students should say hot, and so on. For this, you will need to do some research and make sure you know some synonyms, and your students also should know some synonyms. And beforehand, you should just give them some words definitions, synonyms, and so you can do with antonyms as well. A very basic idea, but we have a lot of room to work with it. Here are some things so you can change. So for example, you can add a time limit. For example, the student has 3 seconds to reply, because during the lesson we have limited time. That's why you can also just set the time limit. And so you can just do it with a small group. You can divide the class into some small groups, and you can give time limit for the whole group. How many can the group get in 3 minutes? And in a group like who just answered could ask the next student. And as I said before, you can use antonyms as well. And so you can just have the students ask the teacher. So this game is dependent on the students having at least a medium size vocabulary. So I would advise sticking to medium to advanced level students. Also, while this game is fun to an extent, it's more for adults. Some children may lose concentration with this one, so only play with them if you know you can hold their focus. Next activity is called Shiritori. And so not beginners or not elementary level students can play this, and you can use this game with the students level, so from intermediate to advanced. And this is, so as it is known from the name of this game, is the classic Japanese game, Shiritori. You need very little to play this game, which makes it ideal as a backup activity as well. Just simple activities. So simply set up the chairs in the classroom so that everyone can see and hear each other clearly. A circle arrangement is a great choice as it allows everyone to hear each other, and there is an obvious order to whose go it is. So choose a student or go first yourself. The first person, for example, says a word. This can be something that was taught in the class if you want to reinforce that. Or if this is a backup activity, then it can be any word. The next person to the left, B, will then say a word that starts with the last letter of A's word. If if A said boat, then B student should say like, so which ends with T, like 3 or 3. And the game carries on around the circle until you reach the original student again. At this point, you can either end the game where there or carry on if you have time. And you can just set the time limit. You can just use it with all level students. Next activity is called vocab bingo, which improves the vocabulary and just revising vocabularies that they learn. So this is suitable for the beginner levels to intermediate level students. And so for this, you should prepare bingo sheets with grids and add one word to each square. Select the grid size from 3 to 3 or 6 to 6, and the words according to the level of English of your students and the expected duration of game. So you should write all words you have added to the sheets on a list, maybe add some more. Call out the words in random order and have the students mark the words when they hear it. They can use a pen, or better, they put little items on a squares, like crosses maybe. This is more fun and you can reuse the sheets. The first person to mark each word on his sheets wins. You can make this vocab game a bit harder. Don't call out the exact words in the square. You can just use some synonyms or opposites or any kind of related words. For example, when you call rain, they have to mark umbrella. So you can just isify it according to the level of your students. Next activity, which improves speaking of your students, is called interview pop. So here the level of their students should be at least pre-intermediate to advanced, and you can just play it with a small group or individually. So this is a great one for students to have fun and be creative. So you can put students in pairs, or you could also carry this one out in a one-to-one lesson. So you should give each student a list of top 10 to 15 verbs. And I tell students to choose someone they know a lot about or who they admire, because they will have more just material to talk about when the speaking part of activity comes around. So you can give the list of just verbs, 10 or 15 verbs, for example, decide, hate, love, offer, prefer, move, win, continue, buy, wait, consider, change. And each student has to choose 5 verbs from their list, and they make different questions using one of the 5 verbs in each question. And these questions are made for the person they want to interview. And for example, let's say a student chooses like President Barack Obama. They have to make 5 interview questions for Barack Obama, each question using a different verb form from their list. They should use the verbs from the list. For example, how did you decide you want to become a president? So here the student is using the word decide. And so did you want to continue being president after your term? So thus students interview that person. Or what would you change about the USA, and so on. Here the students should choose just celebrities. They can choose a popular person. And why this activity is interesting and helpful. So because this is a great activity if you are practicing question formation as a grammar topic with your students. So you can use it during the grammar lessons, so for practicing grammar also, if you have this kind of question formation. Or during your speaking lessons also, or during your vocabulary lessons, you can use this game. And so while they are speaking or just giving question, you can go around and listen for mistakes. In the end, you can give feedbacks for each. So next activity is called Guess Who or What Am I? This is also for students who have just the pre-intermediate to upper intermediate level. This is very simple but effective activity with no preparation needed and can be played in 2 versions. It's usually more suitable for lower level students, but can also be used in intermediate or upper intermediate students, especially for the other variation of the activity described below. Here, just the game is to put students in groups and describe themselves from the perspective of an object, or the other students must guess what the object is. In a quickest time possible. For example, you can set the time for describing something. For example, in a minute, you have to describe a person or a scene, and thus others should find out what the person, who is it, or what is it. For example, if one student chooses handcuffs, they would say something like, the police put me around somebody's wrists when they break the law. or just they can describe the word. I have 2 round rings with chains connected them, and I'm on a person on their way to prison, or the policeman use it for the person who break the law, something like that, and they have to guess the word. So it's handcuff or something like that. And it's a very interesting activity for those who want to just to improve speaking of the students. And next activity is called Would You Rather. So here you can revise just grammar. So the goal of this activity is to make would you rather questions, and would you rather questions funny, crazy, interesting, or controversial. So this is a great way to practice would in the conditional form. There is a lot of different ways you can organize this activity. So one of the easiest ways is to just come up with some of your own ideas. You can type them out or cut them into cards. So then go around the class and have a student draw a card, read it aloud, and then call on another student to answer it. The goal is just would you rather just game questions, funny, crazy, and interesting. And so you should think what questions will be just interesting for students. For example, would you rather give up your mobile phone or your pet? Would you rather have $1 million? And would you rather be the funniest person in the room or the most intelligent, and so on. So next activity is called how to presentation. This is also very one of the important activities in improving speaking skills of your learners. So mostly pre-intermediate level students or intermediate or upper or advanced level students can just participate actively. So this activity is great for a number of reasons. It's simple to assign and explain, effective for students to develop speaking, and fun because it's on the topic they are interested in. It's also practical because they are just teaching the class how to do something or how something works. So basically all you need to do for just speaking activities like this one is have students choose some topic. And you can give 5-minute presentation on that how to topic. For example, so if it's food, how to cook food. So you can just give them 2 minutes to present or a minute to present. You can set just time. How to cook. They have to explain, for example, a food. Let it be fast food, let it be hot dog, let it be plov, and they have to explain, present how to cook plov or how to play football. So in a minute or in 2 minutes, they have to, so after a minute or 2 minutes preparation, they have to present this, how to play football, or how to travel cheap, or how to live healthily, for example. Just after giving the topics, you should give time, 2 minutes or 5 minutes time to prepare, and after preparation, so they have to present So next activity is called living memory. And this is a game based on the classic board game memory designed for lower level students. But you can use it for all level students as well. Two students go out of the room and the rest of the class gets together in pairs. And for example, if your students are learning about food, then in pairs they will mutually agree on a meal or food they both like, and then two students come back to the classroom and these two students play against each other to gain points. For example, then they will just explain to gain points. Student A starts off and asks any student in the class, what do you like eating? And the Z student answers, I like eating. So all students have to answer differently. And so these students have to remember it. And then find what they like, and thus they can just gain points. This is a fun game to practice vocabulary and simple phrases. So the other questions you can use, it's what's your favorite subject, or what do you like to do in your free time, and what time is it, and so on. Next activity is time discussions. Time discussions is suitable for pre-intermediate to advanced level students. This is another simple but great activity for building confidence in speaking. So you should give the students a topic card. For instance, talk about your favorite place, or what's your favorite band or artist. The student has a certain amount of time to prepare some ideas for what they will say, and the student then has to talk about that topic for a chosen amount of time. With time, you can reduce the preparation time or increase the preparation time. So it's up to the teacher, just how to use. Debating club. So our next activity is called debating club, and it's suitable for intermediate to advanced level students. So here you should prepare a list of controversial topics, so two opposing views about each topic, and you should split your students into pairs or small groups. So if it's a small group, it would be more interesting because we have in one class 20 or 21 students. That's why it would be better if you split your students into two small groups or four small groups. So you should give them a first topic, so two opposite topics. For example, homeschooling and classroom instruction. Buying local, just going to the markets and buying online, or living in the country and living in the city, something like this. So you should give two opposite just topics, and you should give time for your students to prepare. And after the preparation, you can start the debate one by one. They have to just support the idea, their opinion. And so this activity is very useful to improve speaking skills. So next activity is called taboo words. So I like this activity very much, and I use my vocabulary classes and speaking classes as well, this type of words. And so this is suitable for each level of students, mostly from beginner to intermediate. And so this is a classic activity. You can split your students into groups, each with at least 3 students, and then you have to prepare a list of words for each word. So you should think about 3 or 5 words which can be used to describe the original word. They can be synonyms, adjectives, or any kind of related terms, or here you can use antonyms as well. For example, so weather, some related words to it is rain, clouds, sun, forecast, outside, but you shouldn't say the original word, and they have to find the words themselves. Or vice versa, you can give your students, in order to improve their critical thinking, creativity, you can give each student different words like weather, hungry, to run, computer, and they have to just write related words to the main word, and when they read aloud, other students should find what word is it. And it's also very interesting, and if it's speaking class, you can ask them just to describe in sentences, and thus they can, you can ask them, why did you write this? For example, if it's hungry, they may use food, stomach. So you can ask, why did you write stomach? Because it's connected with, so it's a body organ. It's connected with your sense of hungriness. Eating, restaurant. Why restaurant? So and here you have to just ask some questions in order to improve some speaking lessons. So this is the end. If you like the activities, you can use it. If you use and improve the speaking of your students, I would be very happy to help you. Thank you for your attention. So bye for now.